My name is Hugh Houghton. I am Professor of New Testament Textual Scholarship at the University of Birmingham in the UK, and I'm also the Executive Editor of the Pauline Epistles for the International Greek New Testament Project, the IGNTP. What I'm going to do in this video is take you through the process of collating a verse of Romans for the Editio Critica Maior. This is something I have been doing over the last few weeks, and I thought it might be quite fun to show people the actual process that's involved in collating a verse of all the manuscripts that have been selected. Some people might think it's more fun to watch paint dry, and I'm sure you can also see that on YouTube. But if you're interested, then please watch on and see what this process involves. Before I start, I need to give you a bit of background. The first is that the IGNTP has been working on Paul for a number of years, and the first stage of this has been to collect the full text transcriptions of the manuscripts which have been selected for each of the epistles in Greek. A large number of volunteers have been involved in that, along with some paid staff here at Birmingham. And the whole process has been overseen by my colleague, Dr. Amy Mishthal. These transcriptions are publicly available in open access on the website www.epistulae.org. And so the data which I'm working with today as part of this collation is visible manuscript by manuscript on this website. The tools, here is a complete full text transcription, so you can see the sort of thing which is involved. Two people have been through and made an electronic file based on digital images of the full text of each witness, and Amy has reconciled the two and proofread the final version. So these are digital files which have gone through several stages of checking to ensure their accuracy. The tools I'm going to be using today are part of the Workspace for Collaborative Editing. This was a joint Anglo-German project, which ITSI was involved in about 10 years ago, developing the sort of tools which will support the creation of the Editio Critica Maior and other complicated editions. And before I start using them, I'm going to pay credit to my colleague, Dr. Kat Smith, who has been responsible for designing and maintaining and developing these tools as well. So what's Romans 12:6? Well, here it is in Greek and in English. We have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, prophecy in proportion to faith. So it's not a particularly remarkable verse of Romans, and hopefully we're not going to come across too much deviation and variation, but let's see what happens when we start using the tools. So here's our collation homepage. I've set it up for Romans 12:6. We're going to collate the project witnesses. There are, well, I'll start that going because it will take a little while to spin around. But what the software is now doing is comparing about 152 manuscripts, I think it is, of Romans in this particular verse. And in fact, you can see here's our full list of witnesses, the 152. So if we wanted to see what any individual witness read, we could click on its siglum here, and it would be highlighted across the top, or indeed down here where it varies. So the CollateX algorithm has compared all of those 152 manuscripts, and we have 3 stages to go through. We have regularization, we have set variants, we have order readings, and then we have approve. And at the minute, there are no regularizations made at all. If we look at the settings file, we can see all the supplied text. So the text in square brackets has been supplied to fill a gap in a particular transcription. We can see the unclear text like here, where it's marked with dots underneath. The abbreviations all expanded. We're not interested at the minute in capitalization, apostrophes, dialysis, or punctuation. That's not relevant for making the ECM. But what I'm going to do in the first stage is I'm going to go through and just check the unclear text, because it may be that some of the unclear text could be ambivalent. So I'm going to go and look through. I don't see anything that Theou has got an underdot there, but there's no alternative. It's not as if it might have an underdot there and be Christu or Huiu or something. Heimin and Humin. Now here's a good example. We've got underdots here, Heimin meaning given to us. We've also got this variant Humin given to you. So I'm going to take this Heimin and drag and drop it on top of Heimin, the main verse there, and say this is unclear. We want to keep a record of this in the apparatus. We've got various dots there, but we've also got supplied text, so we'll come back to that. There's no variation on ater with that underdot on the T, so we'll leave that. No variation on the kata. Here you've got analogia, and the whole word is underdotted, and there are alternatives. So you see here it's in Papyrus 31. So I'm going to do the same thing there. This place for this manuscript, mark it as unclear. And then there's nothing else unclear here. So the next stage of regularizing is to get rid of all of the unclear text. It doesn't matter whether there are underdots, because there are no variations in Greek manuscripts at that point. So I'll uncheck the view unclear text, save and recollate. And in fact, what I'll do, I'll also keep this Heimin there. So you'll see as it recollates, the unclear text will now vanish if it matches the line across the top, the A text. So that Heimin with an underdot has now gone, and we can instead start looking at each individual witness. The one thing which I would do at this point is to go through the list of witnesses, just making sure that we don't have any first-hand corrections. You see here, the star is the first-hand reading. C indicates that there's a correction in this verse. But the policy with the ECM is if there's a first-hand correction, a C star, that would replace the reading of the first hand, and we wouldn't mark it. We've got some supplements there, but we don't have any C star corrections, so I don't need to worry about those. So let's start. Well, we haven't got anything to regularize to in that first unit at the minute, and ordering the reading, setting out how the apparatus is constructed is something we'll do at the next stage. But here we've got echon tes, and that E is in brackets. Now we have got a variation here, echon tais, but echon tais isn't a Greek word. It comes from that spelling variation, the alternation of that E, the epsilon, with the AI. So kai, the word for and, is sometimes pronounced ke and spelt ke. So that would be echon tes. So I'm going to immediately get rid of this and say we've regularized it because of the spelling variation. We don't want that. But of course, that leaves us with no variations here. So echon tes, just missing that one E, we say, well, that's clearly echon tes, because there's nothing else that would fit grammatically or textually at that point. So instead, we'll collate that and mark that as reconstructed. It's reconstructed from the missing bit in square brackets. And here we are. We'll also drag and drop the reading of P46, which is reconstructed, and that's ready there. We're not going to reconstruct echon tes in 1991 star. I mean, if you like, we can look at 1991 star at the bottom and see it's missing those first few words. But at the minute, if a manuscript is absent for an entire unit, then we're not going to reconstruct it in that unit, because we're looking at variation units in these grey boxes. So we won't reconstruct that, we'll leave it. I mean, to show again how the system works, if I now recollate this, those grayed out regularized readings will vanish from that first box. And so we'll only see the reading that we're going to keep for now. So we'll keep working our way through this verse from left to right. Nothing to deal with here. We've got an omission, but we can't regularize that. We've only got the chi and the rho of charismata there, but there's no variation unless there's not even nothing marked as an omission. So there's nothing else extant in Greek manuscripts that this would read. So we're going to regularize this as a reconstructed form, because it's got sufficient number of letters to indicate that there was nothing that would indicate a different reading here. Kata and tain, nothing there. Now, karin and karin Charin is not a formal Greek word. It's that spelling variation known as eticism, when the letter E and the sound E can be written as just iota, just as epsilon iota, or even as eta. So charin is the same as charin, and we'll mark that as regularized. So when it's regularized, you will see that there's little R. This is in O12. And if you look on that top line, you'll see O12 now has an R after it to show that it's been regularized. And in the final Editio Maior, you'll see the R to indicate that it has been regularized there. So this is L60 and L2010. If you look at the minute on the bottom, though, well, actually, we don't have L60 or L2010 there because they're down here. But if I pull it and regularize it, then when I hover over here, you'll see at the bottom now we have L60 and L2010 with an R after them to show that's been regularized. Now here we've got two theou there. Now theou is a nomen sacrum abbreviation. We don't keep that in the apparatus. So I'm going to type it out in full, theou, and then drag and drop this to say this is actually, at this point, it's a nomen sacrum. So when we only want it to apply to nomina sacra, as they've been recorded in the transcription. Tain and tain. Now we've got lots of spelling variations here because in the word dothisan, given that EI will be pronounced E, so there's possibility for variation there. But also this omicron, the short O, dothisan, through what's called vowel isochrony, sometimes could be pronounced dothisan, which would be written with an omega, a long O. And of course, dothisan isn't a word. So what I'm going to do is take this word here and start regularizing these. So dothisan is the same as, is a different spelling of dothisan and dothesan. We're not going to keep that in the addition. Again, dothisan is another variation. So doing this shows you how many possible spelling forms you can find of the same word. Here we've got 4 different spellings of dothisan. This is clearly quite an early one. It was, if you look back here, you see it was found in 01 and 06, so Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Claromontanus, but it's still a non-standard early form, so we will regularize it to that. I don't know what Dodd is doing here. We'll have to find out. Well, it's in 61 star, so if we pull up 61 star, in our line at the bottom, we'll see it's got tain Dodd dothisan. So the copyist started writing Dodd and then realized that actually dothisan is the word and they changed it. So we'll leave that. But we've still got some instances of dothisan to cope with in this this column 16. Here we've just got the final new missing, but there's nothing else it could have been that would work. So we will deconstruct that. Even DOPE in P46, there's nothing else we'd have as a variation on that. So we'll do that. We'll mark it as deconstructed. And then you'll see P46 is now here into the first witness with a big V to show that it's been deconstructed ut videtur, as it seems. Now in P31, we've only got the D visible, but there is nothing else beginning with a D here or here, which could possibly be there as an alternative. And again, we can check on the bottom. P31 has got a big gap there, but it does have text later on in the verse, and it's plausible for the reconstruction that we've got dothisan. In fact, what we could do, we could go back to our transcription of P31. So this is on the visible site. We could say we're looking at 12.6. So yes, there's a big gap there, but that D for dothisan fits in as we would expect. So we can reconstruct this word on the basis of that single letter and say, yes, we'll have P31 with a V because there's nothing else going on here. Here's the question, was it given to us or to you? Well, we have quite another manuscript saying the grace that was given to you. That's a valid alternative, so we'll leave it for now. And one of the reasons, though, could be that we're dealing with the interchange of vowels without eticism again, because hemin, I'd be pronouncing classical Greek, becomes emin with eticism, and humin, as classical Greek would pronounce it, becomes emin as well. E and E at the beginning mean that there's a lot of confusion between the two vowel forms. So we'll leave that for now as it is a viable alternative. But hey, main here in P46 is just a spelling variation, and it's got that initial eta. So we'll regularize that. Calin is clearly another word which we should be dealing with elsewhere, so we shan't reconstruct any of that or regularize it. But diaphora, now we've got the difference that was given to you. And diaphora is the correct Greek. Diaphoran that we're dealing with here is a variant form of the accusative. And the copyist, the first hand of Codex Claromontanus, has added the new at the end unnecessarily. It's just a grammatical alternative. So I'm going to regularize that again because it's not significant. It doesn't change the reading. We can also regularize, reconstruct rather, this one, which is just missing the alpha. And here in P31, we've got the delta visible, the phi visible, and the rho visible. That's good enough. There's no other word. Diaphoran is not a viable alternative, so we'll reconstruct that here too. A te, there's a full not visible. A tie in 1751, what we're dealing with here is that epsilon alpha iota spelling, and So a tie isn't a word, we will regularize that. And erte, now erte is a word, it means you may be. But what we've got here is having the graces, having gifts according to the grace that was given to you, the different gift according to the grace that was given to you. We can't have you were prophecy. It doesn't fit grammatically. It has to be one of those etacistic variations that it was just pronounced the same and so spelt like that by the first hand. And somebody came along and corrected this in 1319. So we'll add it here as a, we don't need to change the category. We'll add it as another regularization. So was it prophecy? Well, prophetean is the main word. Prophetian, a number of early witnesses, that's a spelling variation, so we'll regularize that. Prophetean, this is the only thing, the alpha nu is quite clear at the end, so we can reconstruct that. There's no other alternative here. So that's there reconstructed. We've got, we've got prophetean in nominative and propheteas in the genitive. I'm not going to regularize these at the minute because they are viable grammatical forms and they might fit. So we'll come back to them in the next screen. However, we've got two alternatives for kata which are just partially extant and there's nothing else they could be here. So we can mark that they're reconstructed, but we're not interested how much of those is extant. Same with this word for the here with the article tain. Now we've got, according to the measure of faith, the analogian, we've also got eulogian and alogian here. Now eulogia, both of these are alternative Greek words. Eulogia is blessing. Alogia, check this in the Perseus study, but here we are. Alogia means want of respect. And now this is a bit of a difficult one because whether it's prophecy according to the measure of faith or according to the want of respect of faith, it is a genuine word, but Paul is not really going to write according to the want of respect of faith. It's only present in a single manuscript, 2516, and we can bring up the whole of that text along the bottom if we wanted to. I think what's going on here is it's preceded by that tain alogian, and that epsilon nu followed by the alpha nu alpha means that the copyist has just overlooked this here. So I think this is an error, just a copying error. There's a jump from that nu to that nu, meaning that those first two letters have been missed. And obviously that tain is there in full. It's not one of the manuscripts which omits the article. So I'm going to regularize 2516. And in fact, I'm going to mark it as an error, a failure. I put a siglum, so it'll get an F at the end of that manuscript once we've recollated this, so that people who use the edition will see that 2516 has a mistake here, but it's such a minor mistake, I don't think it's worth reporting. the full text will probably be given in an apparatus. So then if you wanted to look in an appendix, so if you look at the back in an appendix, you might discover that it has alogia. Well, indeed, you can look at our transcription of 2516. All you'd have to do is go to the transcription display, say, I want to look at minuscule 2516 in chapter 12, verse 6. And then you'll see what's going on here. We've got alogia in the middle here. But I didn't think as editor that it was important enough to keep that as a variant. We've got various instances of tes here. That one's partially extant. There's nothing else we can be dealing with. So we will reconstruct that. And then pisteos of faith. Pisteos, so that's vowel isochrony, the omicron instead of the omega. That's not a meaningful or significant variant. So we'll regularize that out as a standard sound change. And then P31, we've just got S at the end, but we've got absolutely no alternative. It's the measure of faith. So one letter being extant is sufficient for us to reconstruct that whole word here. So we've been through the full verse, and I'm going to recollate it. And all of this text, which is in grey, should now vanish. So I don't know, if we keep our eye on column 30, analogian and alogian, then if we look down to 2516, down on the right-hand side, we see that's got an F after it. P31 has got its V after it. And we have much less variation to deal with in this verse at this point. Oh, in fact, there's one I missed earlier. We've got humine here. What's happened, you see, is that the collation tool, once we have regularized it and got rid of some more difficult words, it's trying again to find the best match for all of these words at the right point. And interestingly, it's moved dodothasan out. In fact, we didn't look at dodothasan. Maybe we should have done. So this is why it's always worth going through these things multiple times to see that you've done as much as you can. Having the gift according to the grace that was dodothasan given to us. So here, rather than missing out a syllable, the copyist has written it twice, and it's a nonsense reading. We've got no reason to keep that in. So we will mark that as a failure. It's another error. And now also the algorithm has said, well, humine here now fits in this box. Kalin still fits in this box, annoyingly, but humine again is spelling variation, and we can mark this as regularized, not of the top, not of Hamin, but we've got that in little upsilon. So we will regularize that to humine. Anything else I want to go back and change at this point? No, I don't. So we will recollate for a further time. And this is the end of the stage of regularization. We've cleaned up everything within these grey boxes that we can possibly clean up at the minute. So I'm going to save that and move to the next stage, which is set variance. Now in set variance, we change the horizontal alignment of the boxes in order to construct the apparatus as it will come out according to how we would expect that in the printed edition. So the first thing is we've got a Delphoi at the beginning, brothers. This is only extant in lectionaries, as you can see, all these manuscripts beginning with L. We'll leave that at the beginning because it's an addition as part of this verse, and it's only there in lectionaries. But I'm going to take huper ekontes here. Having in excess is huper echoes a verb that we can deal with. Well, let's try putting it in here. Huper ekontes. It's a valid form. It is a valid form. It's a participle. Instead of having, it's holding over. And this has been transcribed as two separate forms, but actually I think this is going to be a single one. So I'm going to split this to start editing it. And actually I'm simply going to write this as huper ekontes, mark it as another, and save that there. I'm just going to pause this for the moment. Okay, I've got a bit more power, so that should keep me going now. So we've got Hugh contest there. Now, there's nothing else I'd want to join to this variation unit, but we've still got this complete gap in 1991 star. So what I'm simply going to do is mark this as a gap. It's a lacuna. We don't want to do anything further with it. And then we will keep that there. We'll keep that there. And we'll go through each unit like this. So we've got an omission here. No connective, but we'll leave that because it is in lectionary, but it's also in a handful of other manuscripts. So it's not just a lectionary variation. We're not going to connect it to this at Elphoi. Un is here. That's a valid alternative to de. Of course, P46 and 1991 star might have read un here. So we're going to mark them as a subreading. We're going to mark them as a lacuna, and that will all be joined up with the other lacunae. Here are the manuscripts which lack this verse completely. And now charismata here, P46. Yes, the space will probably fit it, but the principle is that if a manuscript is absent for an entire unit, it's marked as a lacuna. That's the best way of dealing with it. Now, 1909 has got diaphora here, and we know that diaphora comes later in the verse. And so clearly what's happened is it's got it up here and it's missing it over here. There's 1909. I can show you this again by going to the bottom. Having different gifts according to the grace that was given to us. So this is where we have to set the variance and join all these units together in order to make what's called an overlapping variant to show the difference in word order. So there's no more differences in word order beyond that instance of diaphora there affecting this one here. So let's split the readings. Let's take 1909 and overlap this witness for that entire phrase, spanning that word difference. What we now do is we recombine it at the top, we split the words, and we keep on going word by word. But we don't want this diaphora here. Now we're going to move that using this tag and lock thing back over here. So that when we come to deal with diaphora, we've now all got that in the right column. Instead, now that's become an omission, but kata's just here, so I can join those two units together and then open this up and start dealing with it. This kata will make a main reading, so that means 1909 is now supporting kata at the top, because kata's definitely there, even though there's this difference in word order. We'll mark this completely absent word as a lacuna. We can do something very similar with tain here, make that a main reading, mark this as a lacuna. We've got two manuscripts which omit it, kata, rather than according to the grace which was given me, according to grace which was given to me. I think that's a valid alternative, so we'll leave that there for the time being. Unless 1359 actually misses out the word grace completely. So we want to join those together as a single unit. I can't do that now because I've already made this a main reading. So what I now need to do is do that and join those together. What happens is, because I've joined those together, it's completely undone all the decisions I've just made, which related to unit 10, because we now have a unit 10 and 12 together. And so rather than assume that the changes I made were something that can necessarily be taken forward, it's saying, now you've joined these two, you have to start again from scratch. So make that a main reading. That is now completely absent. We don't have tain or charin, so that's going to be marked as a lacuna. So we've got one manuscript that has according to grace, 2105, one manuscript that has got according to something else that was given to me, well, 1359. We can actually check here. According to, shouldn't have done that, should I? That's that missing charin. I'm going to need to create another overlapping unit in order to deal with that, which was not a good thing. So I better undo. Thankfully, we have an undo button, and undo what I had just done and join all these together to make another overlap. And here we are, according to the given to me charin. I'm going to keep that phrase as the whole unit rather than just do charin and dothesan and overlap that. So there's 1359 at the bottom. I'm going to recombine these, split them, and then go through this whole thing. Now, actually, because because we've got that Calin from 1359, I'm not going to combine 10 and 12 again. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. This is what I do as I go through it, and pull that Calin in here. And then we're going to go back and do unit 10 all over again, except this time we've also got 1359. So we'll make that a main leading, because 1359 and 2105 still both miss out the tane. We've got the tane there, and we have got a gap here. So I suppose it's sort of incremental progress as we go through. We've got two instances of Calin. We'll make those main. P31 it would fit Calin, but it's totally absent in this variation unit. We've decided this is a unit in itself, so we'll just ignore that. There'll be no variation there. Now, according to the variation that was given to me, but you see we've got two theou here in some similar manuscripts, and they also have the tane afterwards. So we've actually got an addition. We've got, according to the grace of God, which was given to me. If I pull that in there, we'll see that those 88 and so on now properly lead tane. So we've got this addition. I've joined those two together. Between units 12 and unit 14, we now have 13. Got to, of course, it's not in either of these down here, so we can, we can't make that a main leading yet. That's actually a bug in the system. So let's undo that. What I need to do is I need to pull these tanes over, and then it says on to show that there's an omission, and then I need to pull them back. Don't tell Cat I did this, because otherwise this is something you should be wanting to fix. But now we've got the OMS, we can make that a main leading and make that a main leading. So we know it's not in 1359, but we have three manuscripts that have got the grace of God. Recombine that here. Now, tane is all here, apart from this Dodd thing, which I think is actually this copyist making a mistake with the first syllable of dothasan. So I'm going to split those, and I'm going to combine that with here. We'll deal with Dodd when you come to dothasan, and here we'll just add in these to the article according to the grace which was given me. This is going to be a gap, a lacuna, so that'd be the V 1718, according to the grace given to me. It's not marvelous Greek, missing out that second, the grace given to me, but I think it's acceptable. So we'll leave it in for the apparatus for the time being. So these will move up into that main thing. They lead dothasan. Dodd dothasan is nonsense. The first hand came along and the corrector corrected it. So what I'm going to do is mark this as an error. In fact, no, it's not a main leading error. I'm going to mark it as a sub-reading of A, of the main leading. Dodd dothasan is nonsense for A. And here I'm going to say it's an error. Add a little S at the end of 61, a little F at the end of 61 star. So if you look at 61 star now, you see it's got star F. This is an error. But we couldn't have done that in the regularization screen, because it was dealing with what seemed to be two separate words. And here in set variants, we can join those words together and have it as a variant. In fact, I can show you, we've got this neat button here called Show Subreadings. And what this does is it shows us all of the readings that we've regularized. So we just created Dodd dothasan as an error there. But in that previous screen, you remember we regularized Dodd dothasan as an error. We regularized all of those vowel differences. We regularized all of these V readings. And so we can actually see the individual variants that we regularized in the previous screen and see everything that we've done, which is really helpful. It does allow us to block up the screen though, so it's simpler, I think, if I continue with this. So 1909 needs him. In 1359 has just got, according to the grace which was given, it doesn't have a pronoun, so I'm going to make this a main leading, and this is a variant, we'll leave it in. According to the grace which was given, what we've got down here is the difference in word order. What we've got in this unit is the presence or absence of hemin or human of the pronoun. So we're going to leave that. And of course, this shows you why we don't need construct. The missing element in this word in 1991, it could have had hemin, it could have had human. There's quite a number of manuscripts leaving human. So that's why we make completely absent text a lacuna, a total gap there. So 1991's down there, we don't know what it read. And then here, ironically, for the word difference, we have no difference apart from the gap. So we add the gap and we've dealt with that. There's no variation there. Now, ater, subreadings, remember, we regularize those out. They're not important. We don't need to do anything apart from mark that both of these manuscripts are missing this word. So we'll add those to the lacunae, manuscripts we don't count. Now we've got this difficult decision about prophecy. So having gifts according to the grace that was given to us, difference of grace which was given to us, whether it was prophecy. Now, of course, the gift that was given to us, tein karin, is accusative. So you would expect an accusative here, whether it was prophecy. But equally, it could be the gift of prophecy. So propheteas is acceptable, where the gifts that were given to us, whether understand the gift of prophecy according to the measure of faith. So genitive is okay. And we've got quite a lot of support here for the nominative, having gifts according to the gift that was grace that was given to us. Now, whether if you want to see, we've got these gifts, I suppose that you could argue that if we had prophecy here, in the accusative, that is dependent on the participle echontes. So we'd expect it to be accusative. But I'm interested that we've got a nominative, almost as if maybe the copyists thought that a new list was beginning here. And so maybe these gifts are prophecy. In which case, of course, you could say what we've got here is an implied verb to be, starting a new list. And there's so many manuscripts that don't have the new here, and there's no new here than anything you'd expect. That I'm going to leave this in because I think this is a variant that users would be interested in. The idea that you could start a list with a nominative. And we'll see in the next verse, when we come to do that, whether the other items of this list are also a nominative in other verbs, in other witnesses. So I'll leave that. I think all of those are possible readings. We actually have 3 different cases, each of which could fit at this point. That's not always the case by a long chalk, but here I think it is. We've got nothing further to do with kata. At tein, we've got an omission in P46. Let's look at the whole thing. According to, oh, it's not an omission, sorry, it's an omission in 1995. P46 is just a gap, so we can mark that as a gap. So let's look at 1995 and see whether this is just a simple oversight, whether prophecy according to analogy of faith. It's possible. I mean, it's not the nicest Greek, but there's 2 manuscripts which support it. It's not just one. If it were just one, I might think, well, they just overlooked the definite article, even though it just about makes tolerable sense. It was probably an oversight. But with 2 manuscripts which have left it out, I'll leave that in. It might be genetically significant. And then we've got the according to the measure of faith or according to the blessing of faith. Again, the likelihood that Paul wrote blessing here is very small. You've only got 1 manuscript, but it makes sense. So I think I'm going to leave it in. It might tell us something about this manuscript if this manuscript frequently has variants in it, but this isn't going to be reconstructed as an alternative version of Romans. Now, what have we got here? We've got something in the gap between 30 and 32, which is tes. You'll see when I pull these 2 together that 451 has actually got the definite article twice. And we'll see that at the bottom, the analogy of the faith. So that is just an unnecessary repetition, doesn't make any sense. So that will mark as it should come under our main reading, and it's an error. And so we mark that, and 451 is now there with a little f after it to say this has a variant, but it's insignificant. I couldn't be bothered to keep that in. And then we have a gap in 1991. So we make that into a lacuna, and we do the same thing with the same manuscript in this final stage. So lacuna, nothing further. So there we are. We have set the variants. We've got a couple of overlapping variants. We joined together to Theou to create an edition in there. We made sure that appeared in the right place. So this is now set out in the style that we would want the critical apparatus. And each of these boxes is now a single variation unit. So I'm going to save that and move on to the order variants. Except I'm not, because it's warned me. It said, there are some boxes which have got lacunae on either side, so maybe they should also be a lacuna. Index 1 and index 13. So index 1 is Adelphoi. That's only in lectionaries. So even though we've got a lacuna in 1991 is not going to have had brothers at the beginning for the lection. So I'm going to leave that as an omission. I think 1991 is strongly likely to support the omission there. But in 13, what have we got? We've got P31 with a lacuna there and a lacuna there. And this is where I've got to make a judgment. What I could do is to Theou would have been written as a nomen sacrum. So we've got 5 characters. We've got quite a large gap here, according to the grace that was given to me. So there could potentially have been 5 extra characters. What I need to do, first of all, is go back and look at our transcription of P31 here, according to the gift that was given to me. Well, we see here that it's coming quite close to, well, the end of the line. It's looking fairly straight. It could have been a bit longer. If we look there, we've got more space. Actually, what we should really do, of course, is call this up on the NTVMR and look at the actual image and see the amount of space that there might be in P31 in this verse. Here is the image. Yes, great. There's not a lot to see. And we have got a huge gap there. So could another 5 letters have been squeezed in to the beginning of line 6? I don't think I want to call it at this point. And to be honest, we're dealing with lacunae anyhow. It's part of a long lacuna. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull P31. I'm going to split the witnesses, pull it out of the omissions, and say, actually, P31, I'm going to change that to a lacuna. We have a large gap here. We can't tell what it would have read. So P31 is going to go down there. It's not positive evidence for the absence of 2 Theou, even though the fact that 2 Theou is only present in 2 minuscules and electionally makes it very, very unlikely that P31 would have had 2 Theou here. So maybe what I should do is keep it here, but put a V next to it saying it's unlikely it was there. But that's sort of bringing external evidence to bear. And purely internally, I think it's safer that we proceed with a lacuna at this point. So let's save that again. And let's try moving to the order variants. And it's now telling me that the 1 is still there. That's in the first index, but we're going to leave that. And here is our order readings. So what we do here is we can categorize the different forms, and we could also change their sequence. So Adelphoi, I said, it's only in lectionaries, so I'm going to mark that for readers as a lectionary influence. I'm not going to change the sequence of those because omissions always come last. I'm not going to mark any of these. The grace of God that was given to you and to me, again, omissions come last, so we leave that in order. What I could do, we could say that whether it's of prophecy, we could say the genitive fits a bit better there. We could go accusative, genitive, and nominative, but equally there's more support for the nominative. Both of those work in context, so I think I'll leave them in second place. And say according to the gift that was given to me. So I'm going to save that. We've edited the whole verse. We shall now approve it. And in fact, what it now gives me the option to do is get apparatus. So I could ask it to send me the basic apparatus of this verse to show that it's worked. And we will proceed on to the next verse. So what I'll do, just to show my progress, is to go onto the project page and review this. I've now collated 323 of the 434 verses of Romans. And in chapter 12 here, You can see I started a couple of days ago, and we have just set verse 6. We've regularized it, we've set the variants, we've ordered it and approved it. So we have a few more verses to go on until we get to the end of Romans, and I press that button to move me to the next verse, and it loads up the next verse, and you see we have underdots here, we have everything looking a bit messy, although to be honest, again, the fact that we've got 150 manuscripts and no more than about 8 variants, 8 differences for either variant, most of which we're dealing with being spelling differences and so on. Actually, this is looking pretty consistent as a textual tradition. We're not seeing major differences at this point of Romans. What we are seeing is just the odd change of word order here and there, occasionally a different verb, a different connective, the odd omission, the odd insertion, but no major differences in the form of text. So I hope that was of interest. Many of you might have turned off a long time ago, but in terms of showing you the process that goes on to create each verse of this apparatus, we'll release the apparatus once it's initially complete on www.epistulae.org so that you can see that stage of the work done, and you'll understand when you've got the witness sigla with a little f or a little v or a little r after them, why they've got that modifier and what it is that we're looking at and how it was created. And of course, that's something that will persist through to the creation of the ECM of Romans in years to come. And it's probably a few years down the line, because it's not simply a question of producing the apparatus, but then we'll move on to reconstructing the editorial text. We will add the information from early translations, and we will add also textual information from quotations in Christian writers of the first 6 centuries or so, in case they preserve readings and alternatives which are not here in the manuscript tradition. So this is just a stage in the production of this major edition. And if you have watched this far, I hope you found it interesting. And if you've got any questions or you'd like to learn more about the software or its processes, feel free to get in touch with me through the details on my university webpage. Thank you very much.